Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and we're going to talk about Outer Worlds in this video, because it's a game I saw a lot of people talking about in the comments a while back. I was playing it too. I had it free in the Microsoft Game Pass thing, which I've since let expire, so I never got the chance to finish Outer Worlds, but I still wanted to talk a little about it. I haven't finished Outer Worlds. In fact, I only got around 10 hours into it, so I'm fully aware that it's possible things later in the game improve a lot, and I can't fairly judge the whole game based on a small part of it. That said, Outer Worlds is the most average game I've played in a very long time, by which I mean it wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. Everything about it was middle of the road for me. You could, in essence, call Outer Worlds Fallout in space, as it is to Fallout 3 in New Vegas, as, say, Neo is to Dark Souls. The two are almost identical in many ways, and use the same basic template. Basic premise for Outer Worlds is that you're a colonist frozen in a big ship. A dude breaks you out, and then you have to do what he says, in a sense. You can try and hand him into the bad guys, but prior to that, and early on, by and large the game railroads you into doing what the narrative wants you to do. The idea of being let loose in a world to do whatever you want, like with Fallout 3 where you get out of the vault and then you can do whatever, or New Vegas where you can go immediately looking for Benny or whoever it was who shot you, or you can just explore Vegas and do whatever you want. That's not really here in Outer Worlds. You're set loose in a tiny area and you can't really do anything there beyond following the main quest to get to the next area. The general premise of hyper-powerful corporations and haha let's point fun at capitalism doesn't seem very clever nor entertaining to me, because there's no real message or point behind it. I mean, what is the point? Big corporations are evil for no reason? But as I said, it isn't bad, it just isn't good. It's a bland setting. It's like they went, what if the setting was... and then someone went, that's amazing, and nobody asked, why? It's like if you say, what if this character has a giant horn sticking out of his head, and someone went, that sounds really cool, and nobody said, why does he have a giant horn sticking out of his head? You know, they never stopped to ask, what is the point with all this hyper-capitalism stuff? It's all conveyed in a very average manner, and there's no real point, as I said, to the theme or the message from what I could see. And if there is one later on, well, maybe you should have the point of your game not come like at the end of it, maybe it should come earlier on. And just to use a comparison, for example, you have a game like The Witcher 3, where it could mean different things to different people, but for me at the end of the day, The Witcher 3 was about being a good parent, a good guardian. But I know other people take it more about the differences between natural evil, such as something that is inclined to do things we would consider evil, like say an animal eating another animal, and then more specific intentional evil created by men. At the end of the day, Geralt is a monster hunter, a killer of monsters, but then what when the monsters are just following their natural inclinations, and then you have people who are choosing to be evil, stuff like that. Something like that is a lot more interesting to me, and a lot less ham-fisted, hammering you over the head with some sort of message that doesn't really make sense. Then you have the general dialogue and writing, which again, there wasn't a lot of dialogue that stood out as bad, but none of it stood out as good either. And in a game so heavily based on dialogue and conversations, not a great sign. Most conversations just proceed in a very typical and predictable way, and you can tell everything you need to know about a character within a moment of meeting them. Now, some might argue that is good writing. Oh, they can convey that this is a wacky character right away. I disagree. Knowing everything about a character from one exchange isn't very realistic, nor is it interesting. And again, to use another comparison with The Witcher 3, the Bloody Baron is a character in that game who I think is... you get a general sense of his personality from your initial meeting, but then the more depth and nuance comes out as you talk to him more over the course of his questline. And again, I'm not saying the Bloody Baron is the be-all and end-all of amazingly written characters or anything, but it makes a good comparison here with the sort of characters I was meeting in Outer Worlds. The first party member you get, for example, I don't remember the name, but she's a female mechanic, and I had everything about that character pegged from about 2 lines of dialogue. And when you know from like a character's introductory dialogue that they're going to be a sort of quirky, kind of socially awkward lesbian, when they don't even address that, it's not good writing. It's just a cliche and a character that has no depth, and you can't even really call them a character, they're just a sort of walking stereotype. So why would I bother using that character more? It's not like Mass Effect or Dragon Age or whatever, where I want to use a character in my party or my squad so I can learn more about them. I know everything about this character from the moment I met them, pretty much. A bit later on, you meet a sort of too cool for school character who had a similar reaction from me. I forget her name as well, but she had short hair and she was, I don't know, maybe like a mercenary or something. But again, within the first few lines of the conversation, you know everything about what their personality is going to be like. Then there was a melee priest guy. That was slightly more interesting because he seemed to have a bit more going on beneath the surface, but nothing so interesting that I actually wanted to know more about him. And the graphics in Outer World are not great. They're not terrible either, they're just average. Very Fallouty in how things move and interact. There's no real cinematic quality to it. You just waddle up to people and shove your face at them and start yammering away and listening to them. But again, it wasn't awful, just functional. Character models aren't good, they aren't horrendously ugly either. There's obviously they're having some issue with hair because everyone in this entire galaxy has short hair because presumably long hair is too hard to render. And I thought the game might have been done in Unreal Engine, which is perfectly capable of doing that because, there's other games with Unreal Engine where characters have long hair, so maybe, well, I don't know. I'd have to ask the developers, I guess. Combat wasn't fun either, but it wasn't tedious. Instead of VATS, we have the ability to slow down time, which is definitely not like VATS at all. One thing I did kinda like was the teammate ability things where you can command them to do their special abilities with a button press. I thought that was a nice addition. But on that kind of topic, the RPG stat aspects seem really poorly thought out in Outer Worlds. So when you level up, you get skills and you can ram them into a bunch of things like medical, science, guns, and whatnot. But the game basically has you allocating them in such a way that everyone will be good at everything, which I think isn't the point. Surely you are meant to specialize in one or two things, not be kinda good in everything because of how the skills all work in tandem. I didn't really like that myself. Indeed, just about every single aspect of the game was average to me. Music, graphics, presentation, story, combat. It's unusual because I've never played a game that felt so, well, average. Not for a long time at least. Games usually veer more in one direction or the other to me, such as a brilliant game with maybe a few horrendous things, like Dark Souls with its terrible performance in a lot of versions of the game, or a really dumb game but with a few kinda cool aspects. Ninja Blade, to use another FromSoft game as an example, really good QuickTime events, for example. They're still QuickTime events, I don't like QuickTime events, but they're really good QuickTime events. I haven't often played games that just felt so overwhelmingly okay, or in so many areas. That's why I was surprised to see so much positivity surrounding it. Indeed, it was nominated for Game of the Year, and I was like, huh? Why? What was so spectacular about it that it should be considered one of the definitive titles of the entire year? What do you think, though? Let me know down in the comments, as I'm very curious. That said, I doubt I'll ever go back and finish Outer Worlds. But thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.